Just making sure she's got you clear.
Well, good afternoon. We're here at the Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village, the museum in Pincher Creek, with Mr. Frank Bruder, who is a pioneer from the Pincher Creek area and who comes from a very highly esteemed and historical family within the community. Mr. Bruder served in the Second World War with the military, and we're interviewing him today with getting some more information about his military service. Today is the 6th of June, it's Friday, and it's actually the 70th anniversary of D-Day today. So I think it's appropriate.
70 years.
70 years as of the day for D-Day. Yeah. So it's 2014 and that was in 1944. So we've got some questions to ask with Mr. Bruder. So Mr. Bruder, I understand that you served in the Second World War? Did you serve in the Second World War, did you, sir?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
As of 70 years ago today,
Uh-huh.
I was somewhere along the coast of Normandy
Wow.
on a boat.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember what day that storm come in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was quite a bad storm come in, and the waves got really bad, and they couldn't get unloaded very good, you know, just they couldn't, because the waves were too high.
Right.
But I don't remember what day it was.
Uh-huh.
Whether it was the first or the second or the third.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Wow.
what day I actually
Mhm.
landed.
Right.
And I know that was after that storm.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So you were involved in the Normandy invasion then?
Or-
You were involved in the Normandy invasion?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you landed on the coast of France?
Yeah, we were next to, like where the British and the Canadian Army landed in,
Mm-hmm.
what did they call it? Well, Normandy. Anyway,
Yeah.
but,
Mm-hmm. And how far inland did you go with the invasion?
we went all the way into Holland
Mm-hmm.
by the next year, like next
Wow.
spring.
Mm-hmm. So you were right on the battlefront then, facing the enemy.
Well, not exactly. I was kind of like in the back end, I think.
Mm-hmm. Still a very important role and so
Oh,
forth.
yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our role was transport,
Okay.
and everything that come in on a boat had to be moved with a truck
Mm-hmm.
to an ordnance dump.
Right.
We done all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of supplies were you transporting? Were they military machine, like firearms, or were they like food and supplies and things like that?
Well, food, gas and diesel,
Mm-hmm.
repairs,
Right.
just about everything that the
Mhm.
army needed, you know.
Right.
We never knew what we were going to transport.
Mm-hmm.
But some days, well, I remember one time we transported, like they used a lot of jeeps, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And we had to load motors.
Mm-hmm.
They just switched motors if there was anything wrong with the motor. They didn't try to fix it. They just switched and they put a new one in.
Right.
So that's what a lot of the stuff was. It was, you know, the first part was damaged enough that they didn't even. It was just discarded then.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because that
Yeah.
added to the efficiency of getting the war over with and things like that. So, yeah, that. So, what sort of ships did you travel across the English Channel on? Do you remember?
We went across on what they called an LS Atlantic LC see, Landcraft tank,
Mm-hmm.
what they would transport tanks on.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went over, of course, we didn't have tanks, we had loaded trucks
Mm-hmm.
with artillery shells on them.
Right.
Just the shell part, not the cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be in a separate vehicle.
Right.
And we took 22 tons of these
Wow.
across.
Wow. So these are pretty big trucks that you had.
Well, they called them 10-ton trucks, but the tires were 9-inch, and they were tandem.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mack trucks.
Right. So were you driving some of the trucks when you landed in France?
Yes, I drove a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So it must have been pretty rough conditions to be driving trucks and close to the battlefields and on those old country roads over in France and Holland?
Well, most of the roads in that part were pretty well wrecked
Mm-hmm.
at that time with tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Tanks are very hard on a road
Yeah.
because the smallest ones weighed 45 tons, and if they were traveling on that road, they weren't made for that kind of equipment.
Right.
And England had very narrow roads.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to drive in England, really.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be careful. They were narrow, and some of the turns were almost not enough for a truck.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
couldn't make the turn.
Yes, the hairpin
Back up
turns.
and try again.
Yeah. Wow. So how long were you in France and Holland during the war?
Well, we went in. I didn't go in on this day,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to go in maybe in the next 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Because we didn't have calendars, you know, and we didn't know where we were going to start with, so we knew we were going to France once we got that far over.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't really know what we were going into, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That nobody told us. It's just that all you do in the army is you do as you're told.
Right. Follow orders and all that. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we went. We were with the army all the way
Mm-hmm.
into Holland.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the towns or cities that you remember that you went through in France and Holland? Do you remember some of them?
Well, I remember Caen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty well wrecked, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first main town. There were smaller towns, but
Mm-hmm.
Amiens, that was getting pretty close to Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
That was the port.
Right.
And ports were very important because we didn't have a port at where they landed. You know, they had the makeshift artificial that they brought and sunk.
Right.
But I think the next port was Amiens, and that was quite far down.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a map, you know.
No, they weren't going to supply you with any extra maps or anything like that.
And, I guess whoever was running there had a map, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't get to see that.
Mm-hmm.
We just followed the leader.
Yes. So what were the conditions like then? Was there a lot of damage to a lot of the towns? You mentioned one of them.
Actually, there was quite a bit of damage,
Mm-hmm.
and but the roads were the ones that really got damaged.
Mm-hmm.
At the start, when we first went into Normandy,
Mm-hmm.
they just bulldozed. There was lots of hedges and lots of drainage ditches in Northern Europe, it's
Right.
that way all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And to make a road for the amount of traffic that the army had, they just bulldozed the hedges out and filled the drainage ditches, and they just made a road across country.
Wow.
So we didn't go in towns.
Uh-huh. You stayed out in the countryside most of
Yeah.
the time.
And I don't know how that come out later, but I expect that they fixed it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, when you were fighting and providing the transport services, where did you sleep each night? Did they have?
Well, at the
Just-
start, we had to have a slip trench.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you just stayed in the truck
Mm-hmm.
or underneath it or whatever.
Right.
Depending on the weather.
Yeah, I imagine the winter weather over there is pretty damp and all that and cold.
Well, when we first went into Normandy, it was, I think the weather was quite nice, but it got real dry after.
Oh.
And the dust was terrible.
Uh-huh.
And in Europe, they spread raw sewage on the land.
Oh.
And we all had this, what they call diarrhea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was from the dust.
Uh-huh.
And it was raw sewage off the land.
Wow,
But it
that's
did
gross.
not real warm and real hot and dry.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember how long, it must have been for a
Mhm.
month anyway.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
of course we didn't get too mobile at the start there. You know.
Mhm.
It was quite a while before they got further in.
Right. What was the food like that you were eating over there?
The food we had when we went into Normandy, they had what they called a field pack.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an egg crate, only about built like an egg crate.
Right.
2 compartments. There was enough food in that for 14 days for, let me think how many men now. I was going to say 14, but I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember
No,
now.
that's okay.
But it was canned and like hardtack. You
Mm-hmm.
know what hardtack is?
I've heard of it.
Well, it's damn hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to chew.
Yeah.
You can take a piece of it about that square,
Uh-huh.
about that thick, and you can chew the corner off it. You know?
Uh-huh.
It's that hard.
Wow.
But it was good.
Yeah.
And they had canned cheese. They had what they called steak and steak and kidney pudding. That's British, of
Yeah.
course. And these rations were. They said they were still kept over from the first war.
Wow.
I don't know whether that was right or not.
Eating them 25 or 30 years later. Yeah.
But there was oatmeal for breakfast. And there was canned, or there was powdered milk that had the tea mixed right with it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure if there was sugar mixed with that or not, because I was always a water drinker, so.
Uh-huh. Didn't drink too much tea, yeah. Did you... Go ahead.
They, what else did we have in that box? There was some Woodbine cigarettes,
Oh.
if you were a smoker.
Right.
And nobody didn't care much for Woodbines, especially if they could get a Canadian cigarette. And I don't know how many, because I never smoked in my life.
Uh-huh. Well, that's amazing.
There was some, and this powdered milk, you had to mix the water with it.
Right.
But I'm not not sure if it was all that way, but I know some of it already had the tea in it. If you wanted tea, so yeah, you had the
Mix
milk
it.
and the tea and
Yeah.
everything together.
All in one package.
All they needed was water.
Yeah. Some of the other veterans said that they were fed a lot of mutton on the
Well,
training.
We didn't get much of that once we went in the Normandy.
Right.
The rations we got there was all mostly canned or dry.
Yeah. So did you receive training, military training in Canada or in Britain before you went over
Well,
to Normandy?
I'll go back to when I actually volunteered with the
Right.
9th day of February in 1942,
Wow.
and they sent us to Calgary, but they had I don't know whether it was chicken pox or measles or something, and then that they had a bunch of people who were supposed to go to England, which they couldn't send, so they had to hold them till they got over this. So they were full up at Prairie Barracks at
Right.
that time, and that they shipped us, a bunch of us, to Edmonton,
Right.
and all we did there was parade square training, like marching
Right.
and such.
Uh-huh.
But after that, they still didn't have room for us. But I guess they must have needed some drivers, so they sent us to Red Deer, where they had a driver training school,
Right.
army like. And I went through that. It was a couple of weeks, and then we went back to Calgary and took our basic training. And I wouldn't say we had a lot of training. It was more marching and parade square stuff. You know.
Right.
Anyway, we went from there. I was one of the first ones, I think, out of that group that I landed in Kootenai, Scotland on the 5th day of July. So I wasn't around Calgary very long.
So this was on the 5th day of July in 1942?
Yeah.
The same year as you...
42.
Yeah.
So from the 9th day of February till the 5th of July, I was in Scotland.
Right. And what happened next? Was there more training overseas in Scotland then, or
Well,
were you helping out with the transport?
everything had to go down to the south part of England,
Right.
but the boats didn't use the south ports because of the U-boats.
Right.
So they had to disembark everybody and then they went by train down to the south part. And I don't know how they arranged it, or because they had a lot of troops, you know. But there must have been. Well, we just were in either tents or metal huts. They'd have concrete floor and like just a round metal hut.
Right. Wow. So it sounds like there was lots of things going on when you were over there. What military unit did you serve in?
I served in the Army Service Corps.
Right.
But it was what we were in actually was transport.
Right.
Because everything, when the ships come from North America, they couldn't dock on the south end of England because of the U-boats.
Right.
They had to dock further north. Liverpool was about further south, I would think. And then all the equipment and extra troops had to be transported down to the south part by truck.
Wow.
Every bit of it.
Yeah. So how long did you serve in the armed forces? Did you serve till the end of the Second World War?
Yes. Yeah, I got home got back to Calgary. Well, they came around and they wanted reinforcements were volunteers for the Japanese War at the end of the war.
Right.
And we all thought, well, the war will be over before we ever get that far.
Uh-huh.
So we volunteered, and we landed in Calgary on the day that the Japanese War was finished, 15th of August, I believe it was.
Right.
So I got discharged then in November, that 45.
Right. What was the pay like when you were in the army, Mr. Bruder? What was the pay like in the army, or what?
Well, it never actually changed.
Uh-huh.
What we joined up for was $1, let me think now, dollar, someone said it was $1.10. It could have been $1.10 a day.
Yeah.
And you had to send half of that back home.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't keep it. You could get half.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't much.
Yeah.
But if you didn't smoke,
You didn't spend much either. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, the army supplied the food and
Yeah. So when
the lodging and all the rest.
wow, yeah. So some things were taken care of. So when you left the armed forces, did they offer any training or?
Absolutely none.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I tried to, about 2 years later, I tried to get a half section of land through the Veterans Affairs.
Right.
No way.
Oh.
There was too many guys that were, I don't know whether they were old officers or just who they were,
Mm-hmm.
but they were pretty tough. And if they thought you were getting something fairly for too cheap,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't let you have it.
Oh, that's too bad. Because you certainly deserve something for all your work overseas and so forth. So have you been involved in the Royal Canadian Legion since you've come back from the war?
Well, no, I wasn't involved much with the Legion at the start.
Mm-hmm.
I worked, well, I had a job before I joined the Army
Right.
up at Tofield.
Okay.
And it was on a place that they had 200 purebred shorthorn cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back there after I come back.
Wow.
And I stayed there another year.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a year to get dental work done and, something like that. So I finally said to the owner, I said, I got to get a couple of teeth fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to go home for a while, visit my mother again.
Uh-huh.
So I went back there again after that,
Mm-hmm.
not right away.
Right.
But that was, everybody was not satisfied after the war.
Mm-hmm.
The soldiers or whoever they were, I don't care who it was,
Mm-hmm.
they were not satisfied to take the money that they were wanting you to work for.
Right.
And so nobody stayed long. There was, on a crew of, there was supposed to be 9 men where I worked there. And on a crew like that, there was about 6.
Uh-huh.
And there was 3 going and 3 coming, pretty near every day.
Wow.
So it was, nobody was satisfied. They wanted more money.
Mm-hmm.
And has it changed?
No, probably not.
Very much.
Yeah. Yeah, some things have stayed the same that way, so, yeah. So what sort of advice would you have to offer anybody in the armed forces today, based on your experiences and so forth?
If they were joining up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should really go back.
Yes.
Because most of us were volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
They already had the what did they call it? Conscription.
Right.
But no, they weren't using it actually.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they could get enough reinforcements, they didn't use that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I was in England for, I think it was a couple of years, and I finally got a letter from that outfit, and I had to join up because I was conscripted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it didn't take long to put that back because the headquarters just grabbed it and sent it back, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You had already joined up, so yeah.
But put there, everybody was volunteer
Mm-hmm.
at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, I think they did get some of the ones they conscripted, but the war was over by the time they got there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Bruder, we would like to thank you very much for the interview and the history that you've offered to us today. We'd also like to thank you for your contributions during the war, because your military service has kept Canada the independent country that it is, and things like that. So people like you are to be very much commended for your efforts so many years ago, and we sincerely thank you.
I should explain something here too,
Yes.
what happened. When we went, of course, you didn't know what you were going to be, or where they were going to put you in the army, because you really didn't have any say about that. Some outfits might have had, but most of it didn't. They just put you where they thought you might fit, or
Right.
whatever. And we were taking training in the first winter, that'd be 42, 43.
Right.
On the Clyde River runs west from Glasgow
Mm-hmm.
out into then there's Bunch Islands.
Out there.
Yes. We trained there for assault troops. We assaulted the island one day, and then we'd assault the mainland that night or whatever.
Yeah.
And the weather was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember that. The weather was horrible.
Yeah.
That was in the winter, you know.
Yes.
And when the year of the Dieppe raid, which was in 43,
Yes.
they took that group that we were training there in that salt. There was 2,100 of us,
Wow.
and they brought us down to the south coast of England. Of course, we didn't know what for.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you nothing, you see. And we, like when the Dieppe raid was over, I guess we were supposed to be backup troops or whatever, but they didn't use us because it was a fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they disbanded that unit, and this is how the army worked. They disbanded that, and they picked us who could drive trucks, put us to driving trucks,
Right.
and that's what I stayed with till the end.
Till the end of the war. Well, you made a very good contribution and all that, so we'd like to thank you for all your wonderful and fantastic help, and thank you so much for helping us today too, so
Yeah.
it's very much appreciated. This is great.
Thanks very much.